Well, a very good morning, good afternoon, or good evening to everybody today. Welcome to Live from the Ranch. My name is Ken Ramirez, and my co host today, like every single month that we broadcast, is Juliana DeWillems of JW Dog Training and Behavior in the Washington, D.C. area. Hi, Juliana. How are you doing today?
I'm good, Ken. The weather's finally turned here. It's spring, and along with that, I've brought all the allergies, but the weather's beautiful, so I can't complain.
I saw that in the last this past week there was this huge front that came across the whole country that was moving in your direction. Did you get some of that bad weather?
We did, but
Yeah.
now it's making all the flowers bloom, so we
Oh,
can't. I really can't complain. What about you guys over on the West Coast? How are things? I know that you've started your ranch courses. How's the weather been going for that?
we had the most last week. We had a ranch experience course. We had some wonderful training partners that came in from all over the world. We had someone from Denmark and from Canada. We had someone from the East Coast. Anyway, it was a really great weekend, and we were supposed to get a little bit of rain, but it passed us by, and it was one of those beautiful weekends where it was like maybe in the high 60s, where it was just super comfortable. But one of the things that was really interesting about the ranch experience that we just had last week was I realized it was the first course that I've had here at the ranch since Karen passed away. And I felt it just was it was an odd feeling, and I decided to do a little tribute to her at the start of the week, just explaining that she was the founder of the company, and the inspiration behind having classes at the ranch. And May happens to be this particular broadcast snuck up on me fast because it's the 1st of May. But May is her birthday month. She actually was born on May 14th, and every year in May, we sort of celebrate that it's Karen Pryor's birthday, and we're going to do the same thing this month. In fact, one of the things we're going to do is in our library on our website, we have lots and lots of letters and blogs that she's written, but we're going to feature one every single week during her birthday. And one of the things we're going to feature this time is uh, an article or a blog that she wrote called "On Being a Change Maker." And it was interesting when we had her memorial services earlier this year after she passed, the number of people who wrote in that particular blog was so significant to them and so meaningful to them. And I had forgotten that I had read it long ago, but it certainly follows my very heartfelt philosophy of including people from other points of view and not making people feel ostracized. And that's how you can be a really significant change maker. And I thought, she really did write about that eloquently. So those of you viewing, if you happen to notice, we just posted a link to that. It's always on our website. It will be on our website probably forever. But we're featuring it this week because we want to feature different things that she wrote that we thought were significant or important throughout this birthday month for her. So, but it was also kind of sad. It was interesting. I thought I'd do a little tribute to her, and I thought it's been long enough. It won't be emotional for me, but it was.
Famous last words.
Yeah. It's just you just can't help but when you think about someone like Karen, who has had such an impact on you, you just can't help but feel that sense of deep loss each time you talk about it. I don't know that I'll ever not feel a little bit choked up when talking about her. Anyway, it's great to be celebrating her birthday month. And I think one of the things that I realized after she passed, we had so many people who really felt connected to her, and some of them had never even met her, but yet still felt really motivated by the things that she taught and the way that she taught and the books that she wrote. Um, I, I think she'll always be really significant to a lot of trainers, even if they're not connected with Karen Pryor Clicker Training in any way, shape, or form. I think they'll feel very connected to Karen.
Yeah,
So.
and I think it's great that you keep talking about her, and that's one of the many ways that's going to keep her legacy alive, along with obviously all the great work that KPCT and all the KPA CTPs do. I think
Yeah.
it's important to keep her memory and legacy alive.
I totally agree, and I appreciate you you saying that, because I feel that too. I just feel like, yeah, now that I've started this memorial about her at the start of a class, I kind of feel like I want to do it for every class at least
Yeah.
this year, and maybe it'll always just become a permanent part of the class, because I do want people to remember who she was and
Mhm.
what she meant to us. And so
Totally.
really great. Well, let's jump into our broadcast. I'm really excited about this broadcast. Our guest today is Sara McLoudrey. She's actually been with us before, and she owns Decisive Moment Pet Consulting, and she's been a professional dog trainer since 2004. She holds certifications including Certified Dog Behavior Consultant, Certified Professional Level 1 Elite Trainer, a Low Stress Handling Certified, End of Life Pet Doula, Fit Paws Master Trainer, Tag Teach Level 3. She holds a lot of different certifications, and Sara's really witnessed how our relationships with dogs have changed throughout her career, and even how the positive reinforcement training world has evolved. And for Sara, it's been inspiring to help continue and promote this growth for fellow trainers, behavior consultants, and pet guardians. Sara's business focuses on care with consent, what a lot of us refer to as cooperative care. And she does that through personalized virtual behavior modification programs and interactive virtual group classes. You know, in 2024, Sara launched the Care with Consent professional certification program for fellow dog training professionals. Formerly the head trainer at Synergy Veterinary Behavior, Sara began her professional animal training career when she founded Root Dog Training in suburban Chicago. Over the years, Sara's competed with positively trained dogs in retriever field tests, high-level competition in rally obedience, conformation, and elite-level nose work. Sara currently shares her life with Lindy and Punky, her Nova Scotia duck tolling retrievers. I think we're going to meet one of them today. And while Sara's behavior consulting practices addresses complex and potentially dangerous behaviors, she's really known for infusing her classes and sessions with fun, creativity, joy, and laughter. In fact, it's one of the reasons that we enjoy having her on live from the ranch, and why she's been teaching classes for us in the live format. She is a natural optimist and a perpetual Pollyanna. Sara is passionate about empowering her clients, helping them realize that they hold the key to their dog's transformation. They are, after all, as Sara says, their dog's magic wand. Sara, how are you? Welcome back to Live from the Ranch.
Hello, I'm good. As you mentioned a little bit, Karen, prior, I'm a little sad with that intro. Is I'm actually down to one dog right now. I only have Lindy.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Punky was my, well, she still is alive. She's a 2-year-old Nova Scotia duck towing retriever, and she currently is living with friends in Ohio because she did not like living condo life, I learned, and
Oh,
I put her needs in front of mine. And sometimes, as our pet guardians, we need to do that. She loved living inside our condo, but the hustle and bustle of downtown Portland was way too much for her. So now she's living on an acre and a half with
yeah.
longtime toller friends of mine in Ohio, having the best time, getting to scream at every squirrel she wants to scream at.
Yeah.
Happy as can be. So
I love that,
we're,
and I love the fact that you made that choice. It's a hard choice. I've
it's
made
a
that
hard
choice
choice.
myself many years ago. I was making this big move to live in French Polynesia, and my dog was a Norwegian elk hound,
Oh,
and the problem is you can bring dogs to French Polynesia, but they have to stay in a quarantine, in a government-run quarantine facility for
yeah,
6 months,
yeah.
and I just couldn't see her being able to do that. And so she ended up living with a friend of mine. And when I came back, back to the States a little over a year later, uh, she was able to come back and live with us again. But it was one of those gut wrenching moments when you had to say goodbye to this companion that you've had for so long. It was a
Yeah.
really hard decision to make, but it's great to hear that you made that decision for a good
Yeah.
reason.
Yeah, and what's really cute is because I had Punky as a puppy, and one of the biggest reports is how good she is at the vet and how amazing all of her nail trim behavior is, and how amazing she is for blood draws. And the wife does a lot of agility, but this is really the husband's dog, and they're just like blown. And I'm like, yeah, because I've been working on it since she was a baby puppy.
That's great. And that's what I want to talk to you about today, is a little bit about these cooperative care procedures. And I love the fact that you refer to it as consent, care with consent. And I remember, when we were getting ready to start the broadcast, I said I learned something new about you, and I couldn't remember what it was until I was telling everybody about you at the beginning. I went, oh, that's what it was. And I'm going to ask you about it just right here in front of everybody else.
Okay.
I did not know that you had a certification for care with consent professionals. Tell me a little bit about that, just out of curiosity.
Yeah. So last year we did our first cohort. It's a 10-month long program. So my view is it's not super intensive. I want my people to graduate with really good skills that they build, and understanding that a lot of the skills that we work on with care with consent take a long time to train. That doesn't mean that you have to be doing tons of work, but there's just time involved.
Right.
And so we start everything from the, pretty basics of positive reinforcement and kind of how I look at things. And we build up to some basic skills. We don't get too in depth into what the goal is, to eventually have a second level certification where we're dealing with more aggressive cases. So this is a foundation level. And the difference in this certification versus fear-free, I am fear-free certified. I have been since it started. I also am low stress handling certified. What a lot of those is not a lot of hands-on training, and you don't have to show your training skills.
Right.
And so the program that we developed has a lot of practical. You have to show us what you're doing. And also part of their video requirements are showing us teaching your clients. So it is a program for people who are already in the profession, who have graduated from Karen Pryor, or, been doing this for a little while, and they want to work on specializing in cooperative care and care with consent more.
Can I just ask you a question about that?
Yeah.
I just wanted to clarify. So you answered my next question, but I want to understand a little bit more. So if I am not a professional trainer, I am just a dedicated pet guardian who wants to take this course, would you dissuade me from taking it? That is
Yes.
not really for me?
It's not for you. It is for professionals, because you do need to, it's a ton of videos that you need to submit with a lot of different situations of teaching other people and other animals. We want more than just one pet being shown. If you are a avid dog lover and you want to learn more, then I would recommend taking one of my other classes or doing some one-on-one work. But this is really very much for professionals to go on. And I just saw that Engineering Optimism piped in, because she's my cohort and on it. And so we've been doing that together.
That's great. I love hearing about it. I'm probably going to write you an email and ask you more about it. Can I find out more about it on your website as well?
Yeah, I want to put a yes with an asterisk. So unfortunately, last May, I had a vasoconstriction head injury that it turned into a stroke. And so some of my business stuff has been a little on the wayside while we've been dealing with my health stuff. But our goal is to have it up and running again now that Engineering Optimism is done with her separation certification. We're going to hopefully get it up and running again this summer. So, yeah.
Well, good. I appreciate hearing that, and I'm really glad to see you on the other side of your own health scare.
Yes.
And seem to be doing really well. So that's terrific. I'm curious. One of the things that I have noticed, I'm very passionate about husbandry training, cooperative care, care with consent, teaching our dogs to be able to participate in their own care. And I teach a lot about it. But what's interesting to me is it seemed to me that 20 years ago, it was a foreign concept for most pet guardians to think about medical training. And I'm seeing it become more and more popular. It comes up almost everywhere. And I'm curious as to, is that your perception as well? And why do you think it is that it has become so much more a desired thing to learn about?
Well, I think one of the things I wouldn't even say just pet guardians. I would say, because I came from the dog sport world,
Right.
and even those of us in the dog sport world, we had wonderfully trained pets that competed, and like I said, I did competition obedience. My dog could hold a sit stay, but I couldn't do her nails.
Right.
And so it's like she could do utility. I was competing in utility level skills with her, and yeah, like her nails were awful. And that's a real wake up call.
Yeah.
And for me, one of the big wake up calls actually was attending your week long program at the shed,
Uh-huh.
as a participant, and watching the open mouth behavior. And I just sat there and like, why do we not train our dogs why does nobody like at that point cooperative care was starting to come
Yeah.
into the world
Right.
and into the dog world, but no one was doing open mouth behaviors.
Right.
And so it was just like, well, if all the marine mammals can do this, why can't our dogs do this? This is ridiculous.
Yeah. And for me, being a kind of a multi-species, cross-species trainer, it never occurred to me that people didn't do it with their dogs. I did it with my dogs all the time,
Right.
but and it's not like, for example, you as an obedience competitor or whatever, absolutely had the skills to train it. It
Right.
just hadn't occurred to you. And it's kind of interesting that it's becoming far more mainstream today.
Yeah. And so like actually the house that Punky moved to, they do it. She was talking to me, when part of the reason why I placed her there is they already were doing a bunch of cooperative care with their previous dog. And so they understood, and it meant a lot to me. And it was so exciting to see somebody who is not a trainer. I mean, she's a trainer nerd, but not to the level of a professional.
Right.
And she cared about it.
That's good.
And so, yeah, I think for me, the biggest change is social media.
Yeah.
People are able to see what can happen. And so, you still see horrible, there's so many horrible examples of what happens in grooming and veterinary care on the socials. But now we're also starting to see what can happen.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I never really thought about the social media aspect. I'm sure if Juliana was in here talking with us right now, she's very, very much very social media savvy, and she posts a lot of great content. And certainly that kind of content, because it goes viral and people see it, it just kind of inspires people to try things that they might not have tried before. And a lot of times I think people often go, well, my dog's really healthy, I don't really need to do it. But it is even things like being able to go to the groomer, being able to cut your nails, which every dog needs their nails trimmed very regularly. There's lots that it can still be helpful for.
I think this time of year, especially not so bad for you and I, now that we live on the West Coast, it's a little bit better, but most of this country, ticks.
Yeah.
Being able to safely and successfully remove a tick. And sometimes they end up in, like, I had a friend whose one ended up in their dog's gums.
Yeah. And, we were talking before we went on the air about some of our older dogs that we have, and everybody's going to get to a point where your dogs are elderly or older or are experiencing geriatric issues. And that's where a lot of good husbandry training comes in handy as well. And so I just think it's people suddenly being aware of how many different ways medical care can be useful.
Yes.
And one of the things I love, and one of the reasons I love talking to you, is that you don't approach care with consent as a serious issue. And I don't mean it in the wrong way. I mean, it is a serious issue, but when you train it, you're always thinking about having fun. How can this be fun for our animals? And I love that approach, because I believe everything we train should be looked at that way. When I work with police officers, I tell them the dog should be having fun. It doesn't matter that they're searching for a lost child. The dog still thinks of it as a game, and he's going to be better at finding that lost child if he does that. So you often approach it through tricks or fun behaviors. And tell me a little bit more about how you came across that approach. Was that something that you sort of stumbled upon yourself, or you just always looked at it that way?
I think actually one of the first cooperative care behaviors I trained with that dog that didn't do well with nails is she was my competition dog. She had a shoulder injury, and the vet wanted her to, we had these little weight wristbands, and the vet wanted her to do little arm lifts, and I taught it as a high five. And it was great. So that was like the first thing. I was like, well, this is just a trick. I could do this. I don't need to pick up her. And especially when I started working in the vet behavior clinic, there's lots of people that do cooperative care. I take very, very, very serious, dangerous bite cases in cooperative care. And frequently, even the guardians have maybe they have been bitten, maybe they've seen that dog bite, and there is some level of fear from their own pet.
Sure.
And we have to build that relationship first, because if we can get them enjoying the training, they're going to buy in, they're going to do more training. If the pet likes to do the training, that's reinforcing for them to do more training. So it becomes this great thing. And I think sometimes on the other side of social media, when people see these very still formally trained behaviors that kind of look like competition obedience, they go, my dog can't do that.
Right.
And it's like, but guess what? Your dog can stick their nose in a yogurt container. Now your dog can stick their nose in a muzzle.
Right.
And I've had dogs where I had a client where at the sight of a muzzle would aggress towards their person. Yes. And we went from that to being fully muzzle trained. So
I think that's a really good example, talking about that approach, because when you are dealing with a seriously aggressive animal, it turns everything you do into something that's serious, but yes, it doesn't have to be perceived as serious from the dog's perspective. And if they're having fun, they're going to do a lot better at it. Yeah. What I'd love to do, Sara, is find out a little bit about some of the training that you're doing with your own dog right now. But before we do that, let's take a quick break. And then when we come back, maybe we can talk about what's new with your dog. Lindy is a dog that you've been training, and I'm sure has lots of great husbandry behaviors and medical behaviors already trained. But one of the things that I always find interesting is it doesn't matter how many medical behaviors and medical things that you have trained, there's always dozens more that you could train. And so kind of curious as to what's new for you on the horizon. So let's just take a quick break, because I want to tell everybody about our dog trainer professional program. And as I talk about that, I'll let you get Lindy out, make sure that Lindy's ready to go. But folks, at Karen Pryor Academy, you can build your skills and knowledge by enrolling in any of our on-demand courses. Or you can take the step in your animal training career by applying to our professional certification program with in-person or fully virtual workshops. You can learn more by going to KarenPryorAcademy.com. And you can see on the screen just a list of a few of the courses that are registering in the very near future. But we've got dozens and dozens of courses throughout the year. So find one that's right for you. I hope you'll visit us at KarenPryorAcademy.com to find out more. All right, let's come back and talk to Sara. And Sara, you have already moved in there. Is that Lindy?
This is Lindy.
Okay.
This is my grooming station. When I moved houses, I used to have my grooming out in my garage, but now I have my whole office. And this is my little grooming corner. So she knows how to hang out on the grooming table. This is where she likes to hang out. One of the things people always ask me, like, what do you start with cooperative care? And I have learned over the years, my biggest thing I start with, I call it the chili bowl. And the chili bowl is just your treats, but sometimes it's easier to have them sitting out and about. And I want my treats to be able to be easily accessible, but have my dog not bother them. Right. And so you'll see me reaching for them, and having my water spaniel I had previously was very bad about helping herself to treats. And so this is a big thing that I work on. My dogs know when the chili bowl comes out to just chill and relax around it, and that the treats will come to them. So people always ask me about that. That's the first thing I work on. But right now, what Lindy and I have been working on is she now needs to wear booties for kind of two reasons. One is she has some back end neuropathy. She's 7 now and has recently been diagnosed with some elbow dysplasia. But the bigger reason is we moved to an urban environment, and we live in downtown Portland, Oregon, and there are tons of streetcar tracks and train tracks, and lots of really big, like full sidewalk with metal plates and things like that as the summer goes on, we're not going to be able to avoid. So we started working on booties. And I know someone's going to ask what booties these are. I've tried lots of booties with lots of clients over the years. So I'm going to give a shout out to the brand is called Salt Socks, SOX. They're actually from Chicago. This is their lava sock, which is designed specifically for hot weather. But I don't necessarily want to jump directly to booties because that can be a little hard for some dogs. And so we do lots of different paw behaviors. So we'll work on our little Fit Paws paw pads and work on just being able to put our paw on a lot of different things. Yeah, good girl. I'm going to move this so I'm not reaching in front. She's like, but it's supposed to be over there. Yes, good. And so, I want to be able to have her put her paw on here, had some duration. Hi. She's now going to start to throw me lots of different behaviors. And so that's a really easy one. A little paw target is something like I need to be able to have my dog put a paw target on. And then we might start moving to other items. So the trusty cone, and can we put our paw in a cone? Because we need to eventually put our paw into something. And so we're going to work on, can we put our paw and our nose in a cone? Because why not? We've also taught that behavior. And so she's going to offer her nose because that's what she likes to do. We're going to, yeah, good girl. Good job. Yes, good. So we're just working on weird stuff on your feet. You lay down. Good job. Can we do this one? Oh, no. So she it's like, it's a muzzle. I know it's a muzzle.
It's got a big hole in it.
Exactly. Yes. Oh, we're doing paw and nose now. It's her favorite. And so that's a great one to work on for little dogs. I found these teeny weeny little cones. These are great.
Can I ask you, while you're talking about this, I think one of the things that a lot of times people get is they'll watch something like that and they'll go, but you're not getting perfect, clean behavior. But that doesn't really matter, does it? You really are just wanting to make the activity so interesting that your dog is enthusiastic to do it.
Yeah. And she's like, oh, okay, well, and because she's also optimistic that she's like, well, what about my nose? What about both paws? What about, and that's the goal right now is like, don't be afraid to use your body to interact with new things, as she's pawing at me right now. And so one of my favorite things to move before we go to booties are hair scrunchies. And they have lots of different types. So so we'll work on, can you do your paw? And can I put the hair scrunchie on your paw? Because imagine if you've never worn socks in your life, or like shoes, like if you get new shoes and they feel weird. Imagine what it would be like for a dog who's never had anything on their feet. And now you're asking them to wear booties while walking. That's a big jump. And so we work on, can you walk with little things on your feet? And so we can start loose like that. And then we can work on, one of the things that Lindy knows too is that she puts her paw into my hand. Notice that I'm not grabbing her hand.
Right.
I have a very open hand. It's her job to keep her paw in my hand. And then I take my hand away. And that's a big difference. Most dogs, the reason why they pull their paws away from you is because we grab. We have grabby hands. We're primates. We love to grab things.
Right.
And so if we stop the grab, it's amazing how much dogs are willing to cooperate.
Yeah, I think people forget the fact that when you hold on, even if you don't hold tight, it can feel restrictive to the dog and make them feel uncomfortable. I also like the fact that you're using these scrunchies in a way that you got big scrunchies that aren't tight on the dog. So they're just getting used to the feeling of something around them. And I think
and then also what I can do is you can twist it and you all of a sudden have that same item and it's tighter.
Right.
But you haven't had to change items. And she's going to let me pick her paw because we've been doing this a lot. So there you go. And then now we have, and what we started with this is just like, first, like, can you sit while wearing the scrunchies on? Right. Can you give me your paw higher up with the scrunchies on? Can you move about with the scrunchies?
And one of the things that I like about this, Sarah, and I'm going to ask our viewers if they want to type in and ask a question. One of the questions that I think a lot of people have is they they see something like this and they go, oh, what a great idea. I would have never thought of a hair scrunchie as an approximation to a booty. And I think that there's lots of types of medical behaviors where you can approximate things to. And so if you have questions about, well, how would you approximate to using X, Y, or Z, put it in the comment column and maybe we'll get around to talking about some of those. And if you have questions for Sara, post them in, because a little bit later we're going to get to some of those types of questions. So
yeah, and like it's such a simple, like all I'm looking for is like, this is a simple, I need to have your paw, but that's also like, I need to have your paw to examine your foot.
Right.
You know, I need to have your paw to do your clippers. You know, and it's her job to keep her paw in. If she pulls it off like that, she gets to. That's the benefit of not holding on tight, is if she gets worried, she can take her paw away, and she knows she can.
Right.
So, yeah, right.
So where do you move to after the scrunchies? I think that's such a great tip to people, to start with something loose and non-threatening.
Yeah, so I would start with the scrunchies. Then I will do them tighter. And then I do work on getting them moving with them on all 4 feet. And because back feet are different than front feet. Yep. So definitely dogs have different opinions. And some dogs don't care about their back feet. Some dogs care a lot about their back feet. It really depends. And so that would be the next step. And I do a game, I call it called Snack Man, where I leave treat trails around and I let my dog gets to watch me put the treat trail, a little straight line, about a foot apart for each little treat. And all their job is to do is have the booties on or have the scrunchies on and just walk and eat treats. Uh-huh. So they're pretty distracted, but that's kind of hard. If you've ever seen, like, I call it the booty dance, you know, where they start doing the, and then the next step I tend to go, if the dog is really foot sensitive, is I would go to baby socks. And so what's nice about toddler and baby socks is they can come pretty small. They're not as small for like a 10-pound dog, but they come pretty small. And then you can put those on, and then you can put the scrunchies on top of them. And most of them come with grippies on the bottom, but they're not as weird feeling as a booty. Right. Because it's all fabric. And so those are really great to do kind of an in-between before the booties. And you're getting a little more paw handling involved. And it really is going to depend. If you have a dog who, you know, really manipulating their paw is a problem, you're going to take a little more time spending on, you know, pushing the scrunchie up their leg and taking it off and really working on that part of it.
Hey, Sara, you know, one of the questions that someone asked about is how would you handle a dog that maybe mouths at the scrunchie or doesn't seem to like it or walks funny when they have the scrunchie on, and you know it's not hurting them, but it's still something that's novel to them. How do you deal with that?
So that's where using your other skills comes in handy. So like I said, so like using their other skills as distraction. So I might put the scrunchie on, and I would purposely, she's like, oh, how many times do you need to put the scrunchie on me, lady? And I might purposely ask for nose targets. And something that's really easy for my dog to do, but they don't even really focus on the scrunchie. Right. And their favorite behaviors, may it be spin or, you know, just something really simple, just to distract them with skills that they have such a good positive reinforcement history with, that they forget that it's on. And that's why I like to play Snack Man with the little treat trails too, because they can see you putting those treats down. They know exactly what's going to happen. Yeah, Lindy's like, come on, let's keep training, lady. And also short duration. She's going to be like, what? I actually have put these on. I've done some Snack Man with them.
But they're
new. They're still new. This is only like the second time she's gotten them on.
Great.
And so part of it too is, as you can see, is like figuring out how you need to put them on. This is a skill for people too.
Right.
Like, is it helpful for your dog to be standing? Is it helpful for your dog to be laying down? Is it helpful for your dog to be sitting on a bench, you know, it kind of depends. And so, and part of it too here is, she's like, come on, lady. This is grooming table land. We wouldn't do anything like that. So she's telling me, forget it. I'm not putting booties on right now. And so we're not going to do that, because she's like, I want all the other stuff that we do here. She would be fine with me actually trimming her toenails and shaving her feet right now.
So I think this is an important point to bring home. So you're backing off on the booties because she showed you that she wasn't ready for them. So how do you build up to the point? How do you help her recognize that the booties are fun? How do you build up to the consent?
For first with her is I would not do it here.
Okay.
Because this is very much a setup about certain behaviors. So we have to remember too that our environment is a huge predictor and association of what behaviors are expected from me. You know, I will never put her booties on the grooming table.
Right.
I will put them on at the front door, or I will put them on in my living room. And she knows that when she's here, she keeps looking at the
right.
at the trimmer is what it is. And so
can I assume you chose the grooming table because it made it easy for us to see more than
exactly.
Right.
Yep. Okay. I made it easy for you guys to see. And yeah, so I would be on the ground. And I would go back to, can we do multiple? And she's like, yeah. So look at the difference of that versus, and I'm going to move this back over here, even though I have to reach in front of the camera because that's better for her in this situation. See the things that we do for videos.
Yeah.
So look at the difference of a dog who's laying here and being comfortable with the right setup.
It's really clear that she has no trouble with the scrunchies, and she didn't at all reject that opportunity.
Yeah.
Like she did with the booties.
Yeah. And she's like, okay, booties are fine. And so now that we're in a different position and she's not staring at the clippers, I have so much drool on my hands right now too. That's like not helpful either. And
I think it's a beautiful example of how just setting your environment up the way your dog is going to be more comfortable with it.
Yeah.
I would say for all of us watching, we are going, yeah, who cares if you reach in front of the camera? If that makes it more comfortable for Lindy, let's do it that way.
Yeah. And I might instead to like move to her back feet. Because maybe right now her back feet would be easier because I don't have to deal with her dew claw.
Okay, I was going to ask you about the back feet. One of our viewers was asking about the back feet, but I see you're just sort of taking them on where they are.
Yeah, and so she's like, how much foot stuff do we have to do today? You know, and part of it too is obviously like no training session is going to be this long.
Right.
And so she's like, how much toe action do I need to have here? Yeah, that was a little bit of a no there. If you saw that little eye contact. Yep. Remember, guys, no's don't have to be big. I talk about start, stop, and pause signals. That was a pause signal from Lindy. A no with her back feet, she would lay her chin on my arm. I'm going to put like, let's see. Yeah, or do that. Yep. She's like, forget it, lady. Can I have toes? She's like, nope. She's like, not right now. So we're going to take this one off. I'm going to actually purposely distract her right now just so I could take this off so nothing does happen. There you go. Good job. Yeah. And I've gotten the booties on, but this is a lot of footwork in one day.
No, but I think it was beneficial for everyone to see how you deal with, no, I don't think I'm going to do that right now. And I really appreciate your working through it and finally going, okay, it's not what you want to do right now. We'll work on it.
And so I'm gonna close my chili bowl. We're gonna put that out of the way so she doesn't help herself.
And I'll tell you what, let's take a break right now, and that way you can reset or do whatever you want, Lindy, and then we'll bring Juliana on after the break, and we'll see if there are questions.
All right, sounds great.
In fact, what I want to talk about really is the fact that Sara is actually going to be doing a live class on this very topic. We have an incredible variety of live classes coming up at KPCT. These virtual classes meet on Zoom and feature a video-based curriculum that kind of guides you through the course each week, as well as an online discussion group. And if you want to see what's new this month, you'll see some information about Sara's new class, which is on but first fun, and really looking at cooperative care, consent behaviors, but doing it in a way that is fun and enjoyable for your dog. And if you want to learn about the classes that are coming up in the future, you can subscribe to learn about new classes and the savings that you can get at KarenPryerAcademy.com. So definitely take a look at that. And you can see a couple of the courses that are coming up soon. One from Sara, one from Michael Shikashio, and one from Ellen Yoakum. And we have many, many more coming up after that. So if you subscribe to our newsletter, you'll always be the first to know about those classes. And you can click on the link in the chat window to find out more about any of the classes that we offer. So Sara, what I'd love to do is bring you back on and have Juliana join us as well. And before we check to see if there are any questions from our viewers, just if you had some comments or thoughts that you'd like to ask Sara, Juliana.
Oh boy, do I have questions. Sara, that was so fun to watch. And I'm actually just now, one of my clients is actually preparing for next winter already. And was like, can you start working on her booties now? I'm like,
Yes,
definitely. But this gave me so many good ideas. Like, duh, like don't jump straight to the booties. Hello.
yeah,
So
and a lot of times, because a lot of dogs have negative associations with the booties because
Yeah.
people have forced them on already.
Mhm. Totally.
So, and I will say, for any client that I've done a lot of booty work with, which is so funny when you sit here keep saying booties. The interesting thing is finding the right one for their dog. It's really hard. And so there are some brands that are a little bit better than others. And I always tell clients, like, order where you can return, because they just might not work. And so, and it's not even for the dog. Like I said, there's a whole dexterity thing for us putting on booties too.
Mhm.
So
not all booties are created equal. Like,
nope.
or just because like somebody, they're popular now or like they have good marketing doesn't necessarily mean they're okay.
Yeah.
And I assume that certain types of there's different kinds of booties that are better for different things, like
Yes.
walking in the snow as opposed to walking on hot asphalt.
Yes.
And of course, it's going to, a lot of times there's fit issues depending on the size of your dog's feet, right?
Yeah, like, and Lindy kind of has big clodhoppers, but not huge legs. And so, like, and her feet are a little fuzzy right now. So we need to, and so like, but like I had a client that I worked with a Chihuahua, and it was really hard because she had just the teeniest little legs, and trying to find the right ones that would stay on. And she finally, I think, found a company that she could order different sizes for the front and the back, because the dog really needed different sizes.
And one of the interesting things, just last month we had Mallory Kratomenos on the broadcast, and she talked a lot about how one of the challenges with small dogs is because you can handle them so easily. A lot of people just go, oh, I can just put them on and force them on, and it becomes this unpleasant exercise. People are much more thoughtful about consent when they're working with a big dog. But when they got a little dog, they go, oh, this is easy. I don't have to teach.
Right.
But
And
it is helpful to teach those things.
Yeah. And the Chihuahua client lived in New York City. So same thing like Chicago, lots of salt. And, we got to the point too, that's why I call it care with consent. We got to the point where the dog was consenting and knew the procedures. Did she love getting her booties put on? No, she didn't. But they kept her feet safe. She willingly got into position to do them. And that's what we were looking for, because before she would just like literally roll like she looked like a dead animal. Just be like, "Argh."
And I think maybe that's another important concept for people to realize, is that consent isn't always about loving something. I got to a point where I hated going to the dentist, but I didn't put up a fight. My mom, when she wanted to take me to the dentist, I reluctantly agreed. And you sometimes have to do things that are necessary for their well-being, but you also want to get to that point where you're not dragging and forcing the dog, but that they cooperate in some way. But it doesn't always mean that the dog is going, I love my booties.
Right. And I think that's where the cooperative care lets down some people, especially the general dog owning public, is that, they're like, well, my dog's never going to love this. It's like, well, I don't love getting shots. And actually one of the best things that I learned is recently I had a blood draw where they were in this is maybe too graphic for everybody. Sorry if you don't like needles.
Yeah.
But this is cooperative care we're talking about. But like it hurt so bad. I almost punched the phlebotomist. And I am so not that way. And I have no issues getting blood draws. Like I never have. And ever since then, now I have this level of anxiety of, oh God, is it going to be that bad again? And so now when I see a vet tech doing that, I immediately say, pull the needle out, start again.
Right.
Because I know how much it hurt. And our
Yeah.
dogs can't tell us that. So
Totally.
Excellent.
Sarah, what do you think about the boots that have like the strap that go over the shoulder?
I've seen those be really helpful, especially for dogs with skinny legs.
Yeah.
Because the other thing too is booties will, no matter how well they're fitted, they will fall off at some point.
Okay.
You will lose a booty.
It's good to know from the expert because
yeah,
I
and
would
that's
assume
why I
they
like
weren't
this
fitting.
salt sock ones, is they will sell you a single replacement.
Nice.
And there's other companies that will too. So like I always say, like try to find one that sells single replacements, because one will get a hole or you'll lose one or something will happen. But yeah, the ones that go over, it's fabric, and then it's like suspenders for them, and it holds them up. I think it's great because you're not going to lose them.
Good.
Yeah.
So I have a question selfishly again, because I'm working on this with my client, but it also sort of ties into a question that Engineering Optimism Dog Training has, which my question is I love, again, a duh moment, how you say to have the dog put their paw in your hand versus grabbing.
Yep.
And for dogs who do have like a high five behavior, but it's really like a whacking off.
This?
Many trips. Yeah. So there's like, it's very reliable, but they're not hanging out for any amount of time. Do you have any tricks for building duration? And then this other question is, so many dogs struggle with paw handling. Are there any tips for helping those dogs get to a point where they can opt in to something like this?
Yeah. So for the dogs that have paw handling worries, is definitely going to paw targeting first.
Mm-hmm.
Because then and you might even have to do paw targeting not
Something
to
else.
you.
Mm-hmm.
So that your hands are out of it. Because a lot of it is that fear of being grabbed. And it's really hard. Like I think I need to make stickers. Like I don't do grabby hands. Like that's my like slogan, is like anti-grabby hands. We can't help it. This is how our fingers work. And so really working on people flat hand, and then I will do a super long duration feed, just boom, 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 boom. And while I'm feeding, I take my hand away.
Yep.
And so the dog starts to learn that this is the end of the behavior, not because they're totally doing exactly what you trained.
Right.
The trained behavior is you touch, you take away.
Yeah.
And now I'm going to say, I'm going to feed you. And right before that last treat is given, I take my hand away.
Love it.
And it's a very clear thing. And you'll see people though, it's super funny. They'll start out with their hand nice and flat. And as they're sitting, they're like slowly starting to and it's like flat hand, and it's a really good tag point of just flat hand.
Yeah.
Flat. And like they can focus on that. And then when that and I said, like, put like 5 treats in your hand. We're going to feed each one at a time. Right before that 5th one, pull it away.
Yeah. One of the things I also think is interesting, I saw you do this with Lindy, is that sometimes people can ask for a paw and they're really elevating their hand, or they're putting it in an awkward position. One of the things I loved about the Fit Paw target that you used is you had it right in front of the dog, and it was really easy for Lindy to just rest on the thing, so that it gets that duration very, very quickly, because it's comfortable for them to leave it there.
I bought this is supposed to be a dog pillow. I just bought this recently from Amazon, and we've been I bought it to problem solve for another client, where they're doing some paw nail and fuzzy foot grooming, and the dog doesn't like their hands held, their paws held. And so they put their paw over it, and then you got some elevation and you can get under there. And so the dog is just learning basically how to like leave his little paws over it and look cute. And so that's a fun way to do some paw handling and things like that without having to use your hands. Because if you teach hold still and keep your paws there, it makes you be able to do so many different things. You don't need to grab.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I have more of my own questions, which we can get to, but we've now had 2 questions about eardrops. So obviously you could talk for a whole hour about eardrops, but like
I've done a whole 4-week class on eardrops. Okay.
Any quick thoughts or tips?
Yeah. So eardrops, one of the first things is you have to remember that if your dog has an ear infection, it hurts.
Yeah.
And so my vet has changed to always prescribing pain medications in addition to ear drops. And so if your vet is not doing that, maybe you're not a vet. I'm not a vet, but that's what my vet does now. And it makes a big difference because it just takes the swelling down. And I never thought about it before, but yeah, like, and so that's one thing. The other thing is you have to work on the scent. So I do a lot, especially if you're doing monthly ear cleaning, things like that. So I do a lot of like a single drop of the liquid onto a cotton ball, and we do scent training and make it fun for the dog to go find the eardrop smell. And instead of running away, we even do like, we'll put it in a container and we'll open up the container. As soon as the dog sniffs, we just jackpot a bunch of treats and put it away. And so we do a lot of that. My other concept for it too, for any cooperative care, is don't forget to reward showing up. Because many people tend to not reward until they start actively doing something. But as soon as your dog comes up curiously to find, or cat or whatever, to find out what you're doing, reward them. My dogs know that all of their medication is kept in a particular cabinet. If I open that cabinet, they always come up and are like, what's going on? They get a treat for that before I even do anything else. Because if they don't show up, you're not doing anything with them. And so if you have that bottle and they show up, they get treats for that. They start smelling it. Then there's a whole bunch of stuff we could do for, laying their head on their side and working on tactile. And, also, can you not squirt the liquid directly into their ear? And, there's a whole, like you said, I taught a whole 4-week class on eardrops. So.
And it is such a difficult behavior for a lot of reasons. And sometimes people don't think about eardrops until they have a problem. And as you said, there's pain associated with it. It's helpful if you can just get them comfortable being touched. And I think people forget that even just a little light touching sounds really loud to them. You can hear it so well, and you have to be thoughtful about how you do some of those things, because it can be super loud, even though you're not doing anything that seems loud to.
Right. Yeah. One of my eardrop clients that I dealt with when I was at Synergy Veterinary Behavior, we had to desensitize the smell of cotton balls to that dog. That dog had become suspicious of any type of cotton ball. So that's how far back we had to go. Right. And so that's just the matter of, you have to figure out where is the first trigger that this is going to go south. And that was it. Like literally, we couldn't even start with this desensitizing the smell. It was like the bag. Like they went and bought a new bag of cotton balls, and we had parties with the closed bag of cotton balls. And yes, the dog could smell through the bag, but we didn't even have them sniff the cotton balls yet.
Right.
Wow.
That's great.
And that brings up another really good question, the concept of like taking care of ear infections before you've cooperatively taught how to do that cooperatively. Anna asked this question. I had the exact same one because people always ask it. Please share tips for required handling or vet care when your dog isn't ready to give consent. The general advice I've heard is to not make it look like training. Do you still give treats? What other tips do you have?
Yeah. And so one of it always depends on how food motivated your dog is. And so I still like to set it up very consistently and predictable so that they know what's going to happen. Nothing's worse than trapping your pet in a corner and then all of a sudden magically doing it. My biggest pet peeve is people who trim their pet's nails while they sleep. Can you imagine waking up and finding out you're getting a pedicure? That would be terrifying. And so don't do those kinds of things. But, I went with one of my other dogs. We did we did lots of training in the bathroom. So, but if I had to do something, I would go into the bathroom. It's a small room. There's not a lot of options. Sometimes I will do something like make myself look very clear that like, if I have a dog that's really problematic, like you might put on a specific thing that you wear that becomes a predictor. Like it's the opposite of the white coat for the dogs. Right. So instead of them being fearful of the white coat, that's how pets become fearful of the white coat a vet might wear, is because bad things happen. But you purposely like, I'm going to put on this hat. That means you don't have a choice right now, but we're going to do this. So that's some of the things. And then I do a lot of distraction if the dog is pretty food motivated. And I talk a lot when I talk, I narrate. And so I'll be like, I'm sorry, we got to do this. And like, I try, and the reason why I say narrate is because many people, when they get stressed about the situation, they start doing that. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. And then the pet's like, holy crud, it is not okay.
Right, right.
And so if you narrate like, hey, I'm going to get these ear things out right now, and we're going to hang out. I'm going to sit on the toilet. That's kind of a normal thing in your life. And can you come up here? And I'm going to give you a bunch of treats for it. And I'm going to do this real fast. But part of it is knowing what you need to do. So that's like, I talk a lot of cooperative care that I see when clients struggle is because the client isn't fluent in the behavior also.
Right.
So if they're not comfortable with the needle, or if they don't know how to, like, how many times, think about back when you were you're a first time pet owner and your dog had an ear infection and the vet just gives you eardrops and says, go give these to your dog when you go home. How? You know, like they don't have the time to talk to you about it. And so you do whatever you think you need to do. And so I think that's like a really great way of like, if you're not comfortable doing it, then your pet's not going to be comfortable having it done to them. So that's part of it too, is if you're going to have to do it without consent, know what you're going to do, be fluent in the behavior so that you can do it without too much thought and too much messing around. Because the more you mess around, the more the stress the pet's going to get.
Hey, Sarah, can you talk a little bit about the kinds of things that you will talk about in your live class, because that live class is coming up, and
that would mean looking at the syllabus again.
I think one of the questions that was just asked in the chat window was, are you going to talk about eardrops in the live class too? So what are some of the things that you do cover in that live class?
Class, we talk a lot on broader topics. I will say it is not specific to certain things, but we do a lot of fun tricks on what you could then take to teach another behavior. So Ken actually could share when you walked out one day and saw one of the people that works at the ranch dressing their dog up, and you were a little confused on what was going on, and it was for class, because one of the homework assignments is, can you get your dog to wear something on their head and a shirt and like socks? Because guess what? If you can have your dog wear a shirt, they can wear a surgical suit. If you can get your dog to wear a silly pair of socks, they can get booties put on. But it's fun and silly. And we basically have a contest of who can get the most ridiculous clothing on their dog at the end of 4 weeks. And we teach open mouth behaviors that can then lead to teeth brushing and mouth exams. And we do a lot of face and heads and things that we can do for muzzle training and cones and all sorts of stuff like that. I don't think we go specifically into eardrops though.
No, but I do think you cover things that would set an animal up for being able to go in that direction.
Yeah, and part of it is, I think the big part about this class is showing you that there are fun, silly ways that you can do stuff. And like silly, but also how you can use stuff within your own environment to train it.
Right.
With a little creativity, and it's not a big deal.
I think we have time for one last question. So Juliana, if there's a question out there that one of our viewers is asking, or you got one of your own, let's hear it.
Sarah, I would love you to speak again on what you were talking about earlier about what did you say? Yes, no, and pause signals.
Yeah.
And what you look for with those. I love that. I love how clear that is for, like, if you see this, do this. So can you talk briefly about that?
I think we get, so thank you to Eva and Emily in Sweden, who have done such an amazing, and they're dear friends of mine, because we sat in Ken's class together for a week. And they have done such a great job of talking about start and stop buttons. But what I've learned a lot of times is, I call it a pause button, where your pet they don't give you a stop, but they just give you a hold on a second. I need to evaluate, is this okay? It doesn't mean you have to completely stop the behavior. They deserve to be able to check it out and say, am I okay or am I not? And that's where it's more gray. And not every client is okay living in gray. Some clients are very black and white, and some dogs are very black and white. Not every pet lives in gray either. But so often, like you saw, Lindy just needed to check, like, oh, you're doing something with my back feet. Oh, okay. I didn't realize that you're doing something with my back feet. And then you can continue on. How I would decide, like I said, I know with her, when I do her back feet, if she's having some back feet issues, like I said, she will do a chin rest on my arm. I've never taught her that. She has a very strong chin rest behavior, but she will just put her and basically look at me like, dude, you need to stop that. Like, and that's a great one versus just like checking it out. And it just depends on your dog. I don't train as many formal start and stop pause buttons. I really work on cultivating what the pet is giving us.
But it's interesting because you're not talking about a very definitive yes, no. There's a lot of gray area in there, and it's learning how to interpret what your dog is showing you as to whether you just pause a little bit or you take that as meaning no and you move on.
Like when she scooched back, that's a big like, hey, I need to get away from you right now. If we weren't on the groom, she actually knows how to jump off the grooming table. So if she really was bothered, she would have just jumped off. But yeah, and so just kind of being a little more, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Just like cooperative care, it doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Sara, this has been a really great conversation. I've loved it. I can't believe we're at the end of our hour already, but thank you so much for coming back. Thank you for continuing to teach these kinds of great, creative, thought-provoking classes that are fun, but really helpful for our pets and for the animals that we train. And so I thank you. I'm sure I'll want to have you back again, but thanks so much for being here with us on the ranch today. And thank Lindy for their very happy cooperation. And of course, I want to thank Juliana for always being here as a co-host with me on the broadcast. I want to tell everybody, one of the things, I'm going to do a little commercial break here. Sara was saying that she took one of my classes, and if you're interested in coming to a class that I teach, I now teach classes on a regular basis at the ranch. We have some amazing in-person classes coming up here at the ranch. We're about an hour south of Seattle. Later this month is our workshop on positive reinforcement snake avoidance training. There's still a little bit over a week if you want to sign up. All of our dog handler spots are full, but we have some great observer spots available. Also in June, we've got a ranch experience class coming up. We just finished a ranch experience class in April. People seem to love that class. If you want to find out more about any of our classes, you can go to our website and go to the ranch tab on our clickertraining.com website. As we talk about live from the ranch, we've got a new guest coming on next month. Our guest is going to be Ellen Yoakum, and Ellen's going to be talking about how we can create safe spaces for our dogs and how we can make our dogs feel comfortable at home. And that will be our June 5th broadcast. I'm looking forward to that. Ellen is an excellent trainer, and I think you'll really enjoy hearing as she talks about some of the ways that she helps make safe spaces for our dogs. And you see a lot of overlap here in a lot of the things that we talk about, because Sara was talking about a safe space. And one of the things that she does is Sara creates these fun opportunities that can make the dog feel comfortable in those spaces. We also want to remind you that if you ever have suggestions about things that you'd like to see on Live from the Ranch, you can visit us on our website, go to the Watch Live area, and there's a place there for comments and suggestions and videos as well. So you don't hesitate to visit that. And finally, we want to remind you of all of the offers that we talked about this week, both how to become a certified training partner or take one of our KPA courses, or our virtual live classes. Sara's teaching one coming up really soon. And of course, our classes here at the ranch. We always want to make you a better trainer, and we want to give you resources for ways that you can do that. So thank you for visiting us, and thank you for joining us on Live from the Ranch. I look forward to seeing you next month. Happy training. Bye-bye, everybody.